Hello, everybody, and welcome back from your break. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We're coming down the home stretch here. Only have a couple of more readings to do and a couple more discussion points, and then we'll be at the end of the course. And you guys, of course, have your final paper coming up. Just wanted to say a few logistical things in the beginning. The first is regarding participation grades. I know over the break some people look like sort of catching up on some of the discussions, which is fine. But if you've updated on questions that I've already graded for participation, you'll get credit for them. But send me an email to let me know, because I won't be going back and looking through them again unless you let me know that you have added to the discussion. So you won't get full credit as if you would, if you had posted right away, but you will definitely get some credit. So send me an email, and when I'm calculating participation grades, I'll go back and check on those. Also, the final papers. Final papers are coming up. Nothing, it's not too difficult. It's just a 5 to 6 page paper, which, I know can sound like a lot, but 5, 6 double spaced pages doesn't take too much time. So I have listed some potential paper topics on the WordPress website. So take a look at those, and if you wanted to write your paper on one of those, that's fine. If you have a topic that you're interested in writing on, that's also fine. If you do have a topic that you want to write on, send me an email, and we can talk about it. And yeah, I'll try to help you come up with some references to think about different arguments that you might want to make and things like that. The key thing that I'm looking for in the paper is that you can make a philosophical argument. That you understand the way logic works, the way that an argument works. You have your premises and you have your conclusion, and your conclusion should follow from your premises. There are also going to be assumptions. Maybe you want to consider some of the assumptions in your argument. Basically, it's trying to look at an issue from both sides. So you present your argument, and then you say, okay, well, this is the argument, but here are some potential objections to my argument. So you list those objections. And then you go back and you rebut those objections. Say, okay, I understand that there are these objections to my theory, but here's why I think this argument still holds up in the face of these objections. So, you start off with your thesis, you make an argument for your thesis, you consider objections, and then you reply to those objections, and then maybe a short conclusion. So obviously, just like any paper, you have your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. Just do that as well. Introduce the topic. Talk about, talk maybe a paragraph about why it's important. Why is this a topic worth considering? Motivate the paper, as it's called. And then as a conclusion, you sort of wrap it up. There's a famous saying. This relates to public speaking, but it applies to writing as well. In the beginning, you tell people what you're going to tell them. In the body, you tell them. And in the conclusion, you tell them again what you told them. So repetition is the mother of education. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. The final papers are due, I think, on December the 17th. So yeah, I'm happy if you guys want to send me a draft. I'll take a look at the draft and get it back to you before the papers are due. I'm happy to work with you on that. Okay, just briefly, I know, like, if we can reach back into our minds a couple of weeks ago before Thanksgiving, it seems like an eternity. We can talk a little bit about Nussbaum and women's capabilities in social justice. So this is an interesting take on human rights. It's a little bit different than what we've seen so far. Basically, the capabilities approach is just what it sounds like. It says that there are certain, as a human being, we have a capacity, or we're capable of performing certain actions. And some of those, and when we're developing sort of a list of universal human rights, we need to take these things into account. So it's not, these are things that aren't culturally relative. These are things that are universal to all human beings. So that's why it could be a potential basis for it being a universal human right. The capabilities approach was developed by a very famous Harvard economist, Amartya Sen. And essentially, the way it got started was that Sen wanted to provide an alternate picture to just measuring sort of the standard or quality of life in a country than just the economic factors. Welfare economics, which is largely based on utilitarianism. Whoever has the highest GDP, if you have a higher GDP, then more than likely, the quality of life of the people in that country is going to be better. Sin said, wait a minute, that's not sufficient. We need to consider all these other things, and the things that Sin said we should consider are these human capabilities in these countries. Sure, they, no offense to Saudi Arabia, if there are any students out there from Saudi Arabia, but they have a very high GDP, but yet, if you're a woman in Saudi Arabia, or some countries where women are not particularly treated well, then, Saudi Arabia may not rank as high on the Human Development Index. So, and that's essentially the UN Human Development Index is largely based on the capabilities approach and the work that Amartya Sen did. So along comes Martha Nussbaum, who is a philosopher. I think she was at the University of Chicago at the time. And Nussbaum is an Aristotelian, and Aristotle also believed that human beings have natural capabilities, and they have a natural end. And when you're trying to rate how well a person lives in their life, you look at how well they're carrying out their function or their capabilities. So Nussbaum brings a type of Aristotelian slant towards the work that Sen did, and some of the capabilities that Nussbaum listed are life. I mean, obviously that's a very, very easy when people have, are capable of living a long and healthy life if they're given the right, in the right conditions. Health, that's another one that's actually somewhat controversial. One of the big questions in our country right now is health care. Should it be a universal right to all of our citizens, or should the citizens themselves be responsible for providing health care for themselves? So it's a question to consider. And one interesting thing that one of the shows, so Nussbaum has 10 capabilities that she lists. I'm not going to go through all 10. But one of the more interesting ones is something she calls practical reasoning, which also comes from Aristotle. Aristotle had this concept, it was called phronesis in Greek, and that's essentially what it means, is practical reasoning. Aristotle thought that there are principles towards life, but because context matters and things vary, the way that a person can be successful in life is by trying to apply these principles to the context. And that's where practical reasoning comes in, and that's what Aristotle is talking about. And when Nussbaum is talking about practical reasoning, she's talking about people being able to sort of form their own conceptions of what constitutes a good life. So, for instance, if you believe, if you're a Christian, and what constitutes a good life for you is living a Christian life and trying to emulate the life of Jesus, then you've exercised your practical reason, and that's what you've decided. If you believe that there is no God and you're an atheist, and that's the what you want to hold to, then you should have the freedom to do that, because all human beings have this capability to sort of decide on their own, to look at the issues and think, what makes the most sense to them. This is often called liberty of conscience. It's sort of and in many of these cases you can actually look at the capabilities that Nussbaum talks about, and you can see that a lot of these capabilities are actually enshrined in our Bill of Rights. The practical reasoning could be viewed as sort of freedom of religion. So there are a couple of challenges with the capabilities approach. One is